What's up everyone, James from Dr. Dean's Pools here, and today I'm going to share with you 5 things that you need to know if you're getting your pool resurfaced. These 5 things are really specific to what you need to do while filling your pool and immediately after filling your pool to make sure that you have the absolute best setup process for your pool surface. These things apply to all colors of pool surface, so if you go with a white Portland cement or if you decide to go with a colored plaster, it will work for both. These are a little bit more specific for the white cements because the colored plasters are depending on the manufacturer, you can have a little bit of a different setup process that you need to do. I know a lot of them need to dry in the sun for a day before you can start filling them up. So I'm not going to get into that today. These are 5 things that will work for you no matter what type of pool surface you have, so long as it is a plaster pool surface. Item number 1 is you need to make sure that when you are filling your pool with the water, it needs to be a continuous fill from beginning to end. The reason it has to be a continuous fill from beginning to end is because if you stop at any point, you need to realize that the plaster is drying and curing the entire time while you're filling your pool. So if you stop, say halfway up, and you leave it for a couple of hours and then you come back to it, you're gonna find that there's gonna be a ring that's formed around your pool at that level. Now, if this ring forms, you may require some incredibly aggressive chemical and physical treatments to this freshly cured surface. And the last thing you wanna do when you get your pool surface redone is have to immediately aggressively attack it with chemistry. Let's call that part 1A. 1B, just to go along with while we're talking about filling up your pool. You're gonna want to test the chemical balance of the water coming out of your faucet and your garden hose. Reason being, we just did a resurface the other day, and when we tested the water coming out of the faucet, the pH was up at 8.2. It's on a 14-point scale, so 1 is incredibly acidic, 7 is perfectly neutral. That is what ideally like a spring water should be. It should be about 7, and then 14 is the most basic it can be on a pH scale, and at 14 you're starting to look at stuff like ammonia. And you really want to know the water that's coming out of your hose because you're going to have to combat that once this pool is filled. So you want to be able to prepare yourself for the amount of chemistry that you're going to need. For example, if I had a pool that was putting out water that was a 7.2 pH, which is perfectly fine, I know that immediately I'm gonna need just a little bit less acid than if I'm pulling out water like we had the other day that is about 8.2 on the pH scale. So understanding the water that comes out of your faucet is going to be incredibly important to making sure that you get the absolute best results starting from day 1 of your pool resurface. Item number 2, now this can be done while the pool is filling or immediately after. You want to use some kind of a sequestering agent. I know that we are big fans of Startup Tech, which is a very good chemical, and essentially what a sequestering agent is intended to do is to keep everything, like any iron that may be in the water, any kind of calcium that may be coming out, we want to keep all of that into the suspension of the water. When something is held in suspension, it means that basically it can't stick onto the walls of the pool, and the absolute last thing that we want with any kind of calcium deposits or iron or copper or anything of that kind of nature that can stain or leave kind of or that can leave marks on your pool, the last thing we want is for that to stick to the surface. So you're going to want to use a high quality sequestering agent. I know like I said, we use Startup Tech, and we use that while the pool is filling, and we always have great results with that. And that's gonna make sure that your pool sets up immediately in a very safe environment so that none of this stuff can get onto your plaster. Because fresh plaster, your pool is still drying, and while it's drying, it's incredibly susceptible to stains and calcium deposits. Item number 3 to make sure that you know when you get your pool replastered is that for the first 7 days you don't want to go swimming. Okay, there's a couple chemical reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is because this surface and this plaster is actually still curing under the water. That we've had a few instances ourselves where somebody has gone swimming the day that it was filled, and there's been footprints left all over the pool. And then we get asked, well, why is there footprints? It's like, well, did you go swimming? Yeah, the grandson went swimming the other day. It's like, that's why, unfortunately, you know, it is quite firm, but if you put, say, 150 pounds of weight on it and you're standing on your foot and you're jumping around, you're having a great time, you can definitely leave imprints of feet and marks all over that pool surface. And once it dries, it really isn't gonna get gone. So make sure that for those first 7 days you stay out of the pool. If you can stay out for those first 7 days, you'll get another 7 to 10 years easy if you take good care of your surface. Item number 4, and this is one of the things that we just learned from our surface manufacturer, CLI Industries here in Orlando, is that the setup period was traditionally thought to be the first 7 days. It turns out to be the first 30 days, all right? Now, that's not to say that you have to stay out for 30 days. I think that's a little bit much personally. You can totally go swimming after the first 7, but those first 30 are what we call the setup period. And it's definitely something that we harp on as pool specialists ourselves. We really quite pride our work that we do in pool setups. We have a lot of success with them. So you have the first 30 days. Now, essentially for the first 30 days, you just need to make sure that you're staying on top of your pool chemistry. You're not letting the pH get too high, too low, the alkalinity get too high, too low. You're gonna check your calcium hardness. If you start reaching anywhere close to 500 parts per million on calcium hardness, you're gonna wanna think about trying to drain some of that water out and then replenish it with fresh water. Refer back to like part 1B on this. Make sure that the calcium hardness coming out of your faucet isn't super duper high. So that's the first 30 days. You need to make sure of all of that. You need to clean the filter, check your chemistry, make sure everything stays great for those first 30 days. In the first 7 days though, you need to make sure you run your pool a little bit hot, which is when the pH is a little bit lower than you would normally want to run it at. For those first 7 days, you're gonna wanna keep the pH at about 7, 7.2, and the alkalinity between 80 and 100. After that, you can stabilize those levels to the normal ranges of 7.2 and 7.6 and 100 to 160. If you stay between there, you're gonna be fine. If you're using cyanuric acid, stabilizer or conditioner in your pool, you're gonna wanna do some maths on the appropriate level for your alkalinity, because cyanuric acid can actually give false readings on your alkalinity test. The alkalinity is going to be lower than what you test at if you have appropriate cyanuric acid levels in your pool. And lastly, part 5 of what to do with your freshly cured and set up pool surface is in those first 7 and even first 30 days, if you can swing it, you have to brush that pool every single day. The reason you want to brush the pool every single day is because you have to remember this is a construction site. So if you got the floors in your house redone, if you had tile floors put down or anything like that, you would know that those tiles are incredibly dusty. And if you don't get that sponge down and really clean that grout out, and then even once you clean the grout, you got all this dust that's just sitting on top of those tiles, same thing is gonna be happening in that pool. You wanna get all of that dust off of the surface, and you want that pump to pull it in through the drains, through the main drain, through the skimmer, and you wanna put all of that straight through the filter, and that's where the sequestering agent's gonna help as well. It will all stick better to the filter, and then you can just clean that and you'll be good to go. If you have a cartridge filter, you're gonna be looking for the first week, cleaning that thing every day or every other day to make sure that you get the absolute best results possible. Brushing it every day is gonna keep the dust and the calcium up into the water, and all that's gonna get stuck onto your filter. You'll rinse that out, good to go. I guess another part of 5A, well, let's call it 5B, you cannot use any kind of vacuum in your pool for the first month. Okay, if you put something like a Hayward Navigator in there, or even if you use a hand vacuum, you will get track marks. You just will. That amount of suction force pulling it down onto a relatively soft plaster, you're definitely gonna leave track marks, and you're gonna hate it, and you're gonna be very disappointed. So just, if there's some debris, brush it up, use the net. It's gonna take some time, believe me, but it will be worth it, because if you get those track marks will be there forever. Whereas if you have just a little bit of debris, if you spend an extra 15 minutes cleaning out that pool, but you get 15 great years, I think that's a great trade-off for you. So this has been 5 things. Well, I guess we had 1B and 5B, so I guess 7 things for you to know about getting your pool resurfaced, and more specifically, how to best make sure that you take care of that pool once it gets freshly resurfaced. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and leave us a like. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, we're there all the time, and let us know if there's anything else that you want to see. This was James with Doc Dean's Pools, and I'll catch you in the next one.